Chapter 1338. It sounds nice. Why did you suddenly think of this name? Nothing, I just think it sounds nice. Since you like this name so much, let's name our daughter Lingbing. Mu Lingbing, Situ Yan's expression changed. There couldn't be such a coincidence. Jin Se must have come up with this name. Jin Se, Situ Yan's eyes grew brighter and brighter. The hope that had eluded him for so long was finally found. Mu Lingbing is very likely Jin Se's daughter. Situ Yan suddenly stood up. His usually calm and dignified face was now filled with nervousness and excitement. Whenever Jin Se was mentioned, he was no longer the swift and decisive sect master of Tiangang sect, but an ordinary man looking for his beloved. Seeing that Situ Yan had the same thoughts as him, Bewitching nodded. I also think it's possible. If Mu Lingbing is really Master's daughter, then wouldn't Master be Heng Zhuang's grandfather? Situ Yan's expression changed at Bewitching's words. Even if Mu Lingbing is Jin Se's daughter, I'm afraid it has nothing to do with me. He had been searching for Jin Se all these years, but there was an even bigger worry in the depths of his heart. With Jin Se's charm, there would never be a lack of suitors. Perhaps Jin Se had already married someone else and was already filled with children and grandchildren. After all, he was the one who had hurt Jin Se. He was the one who had let her down first, so it was normal for her to marry someone else. All this time, although he did not find Jin Se, he sighed in his heart. This result was much better than finding Jin Se lying in someone else's arms. Bewitching shook his head. If that's really the case, then it's not impossible. After all, Master and Master's wife had slept together. Although the possibility was small, it wasn't impossible. As long as I can see Jin Se again in this lifetime, it's enough. Regardless of whether Jin Se was married to someone else, he would still treat Jin Se's child as his own. Situ Yan's brows furrowed at this thought. Is Mu Lingbing locked up in the Yu family like Lan Yunxiao? Bewitching nodded, that's right, they are all in the Yu clan. Yu Xiqing is also in the Yu clan. Situ Yan and Bewitching looked at each other, and their expressions changed at the same time. If Mu Lingbing really was Mu Jin Se's daughter, then connecting all the dots, perhaps Yu Xiqing was involved as well. This matter needs to be thoroughly investigated. Situ Yan's eyes shone with a profound light. Before everything was confirmed, they could not make any rash judgments. Bewitching nodded. We can investigate Mu Lingbing's identity. After knowing all this, Bewitching's heart was shocked to the extreme. If all of this was true, then all of these grudges had already happened in Master's generation. Situ Yan immediately stood up. His drunkenness had long since dissipated, and his dignified face was solemn. I will investigate the Yu clan's matters. Send someone to find out Mu Lingbing's identity. Yes, Master, Bewitching replied. Chapter 1339. In the Small World. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman finally woke up after 3 days of sleep. With the help of Bailey Hongzhuang, the toxins in their bodies had been completely removed, and their injuries had recovered a lot. When the two walked out of the house, they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others standing outside the house, waiting for them with smiles on their faces. Seeing this scene, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman felt warm in their hearts. You're finally awake. Xia Jiqing was the first to speak. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman and smiled. Do you still feel uncomfortable? Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman waved their hands again and again. We're fine, there's no problem. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Wei Junjia's poison was very powerful, and Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were already injured before, so after the detoxification, they were very weak and only woke up after 3 days. I'm really sorry to have delayed everyone for so long because of us. Yuan Jixin's low and slightly hoarse voice was full of guilt as he bowed to everyone. The reason why they could survive was because of the help of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Speaking of which, the other party had no obligation to do all this. We're all friends, don't take it to heart. Gong Xiaoqing said. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman smiled faintly. They were not very familiar with Gong Xiaoqing and the others, they just had a conversation. Although a large part of the reason was because of Bailey Hongzhuang, they were really grateful that Gong Xiaoqing and the others could save them. The other cultivators of the Snow Origin Dynasty team have fallen. In the following days, you will be in a team with us. What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and beautiful face rippled with a light and moving smile. Her voice was gentle and pleasant to listen to. This was the result of their discussion. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were like music to Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's ears. Before this, they were already very worried about the following days. After all, without a team, it was extremely difficult for the two of them to survive in the small world. At the same time, they knew that it was not easy to integrate into a team. They also hoped to join Bailey Hongzhuang's team, but it was already very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to save one of them. If they still wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to accept them, it would be a bit too much. They didn't think that before they could open their mouths, Bailey Hongzhuang had already spoken first. This really made them surprised. Miss Bailey, can we really join? Yuan Jixin couldn't help but ask again. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, but if you decide to join us, you have to join us wholeheartedly. We treat our teammates as family and help each other. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman nodded repeatedly, we will. Yuan Xiaoman walked over to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her pretty face filled with joy and gratitude. Miss Bailey, my life was saved by you, from now on you are my boss. I will do whatever you tell me to do. I will never do anything that I shouldn't do. Hearing Yuan Xiaoman's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be startled. Miss Yuan, this, Yuan Xiaoman grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Boss, you can just call me Xiaoman from now on. Chapter 1340. Everyone looked at Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's gratitude and joy from the bottom of their hearts, and the smiles on their faces widened. It seemed that Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's situation was much better than they had imagined. Obviously, these two were also people who knew how to repay kindness. As long as they were loyal, they would get used to each other after a period of time. With the addition of 2 Orange Realm Rank 1 cultivators, the strength of their team had increased by a lot. Since you guys are fine now, how about we depart to the next city tomorrow? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. They had stayed here for a few days and it was time to move on. Although 2 years sounded long, the small world was huge. They had to reach the central city of the small world before the 2 years were up. Hearing this, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman nodded. No problem. Everyone's journey had been delayed for a few days because of them and it was time to depart. Then let's go back to the house to cultivate. You guys take care of yourselves. We will depart early tomorrow morning. Dongfang Yu smiled at Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Xiaoman. The next day, just as the sun rose, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had already departed from the city to the next city. They were used to going out to hunt monsters every day. Now that they had stayed in the city for a few days, they were itching for a fight. Especially after dealing with the cultivators from the Green Firmament Dynasty, everyone was even more interested in improving their cultivation level. Thinking back, they were oppressed by the Green Firmament Dynasty and now they were able to take revenge through their own hands. It was all because of their hard work in cultivation that they were able to take revenge. Otherwise, when they encountered the cultivators from the Green Firmament Dynasty this time, they were afraid that they would repeat the same mistake. Now, they understood that only by improving their own strength could they defend their dignity. The 5-person team had successfully advanced to a 7-person team. As such, they no longer had to worry about the difference in numbers when fighting against a middle-sized dynasty team. Although they only had 7 people now, with Xiao He and Xiao Bai, they could be considered a 9-person team. When Baishi's seclusion ended, they would be a 10-person team. Even if they were to fight against a large dynasty team, they would not have to worry too much. Hey, have you heard? There seems to be an ancient relic fluctuation near Wuguang City. Recently, many teams have been rushing to the object square. Ancient relic? Ancient relic has appeared in this small world. There are inheritances in the small world. Back then, many powerhouses who built the small world placed their inheritances in the small world. It is precisely because of this that many cultivators participate in the assessment competition to try their luck and obtain this inheritance. If there's really an ancient relic, we'll be able to obtain our fortune to obtain the inheritances. Of course. Of course, of course, of. Of their eyes. To there to there. To them to, of there. Chapter 1341. What news did you hear? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two beasts on her shoulders, and her beautiful face was filled with a joyful smile. They also met the small team in front of them in the process of hunting beasts, but the mysterious appearance of the team was very suspicious, so she sent Xiao He and Xiao Bai to inquire about it. After all, Xiao He and Xiao Bai had the ability to change their sizes at any time. They were natural spies, and the other party had no way to discover their existence. After Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai's ability to change their sizes, their faces were filled with shock. These two beasts can change their sizes. Yuan Xiaoman looked at Xia Jiqing in disbelief, hoping that Xia Jiqing could answer her. As early as when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang in the snow country, they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had 3 contract beasts, but they didn't know that these two beasts had such a heaven-defying ability. It was already very shocking that these two beasts' cultivation had reached Orange Realm level 5, and now these two beasts could change their sizes at will. They had never seen contract beasts with such ability. In this way, as long as these two contract beasts went to inquire about the news, it would be difficult for the other party to find out. Xia Jiqing nodded slightly. Yes, Xiao He and Xiao Bai are very powerful. Yuan Xiaoman swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and her expression was a bit shocked and emotional. They are indeed very powerful. Boss is really amazing. Yuan Jixin sighed. This kind of thing that was unimaginable on normal days happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. However, it was already very rare for Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to contract 3 beasts. If it was a normal day, no one would know about this at all. Hongzhuang has always been very powerful. When you get along with Hongzhuang for a long time, you will know. Xia Jiqing smiled. The next moment, Xia Jiqing walked directly to the side of Bailey Hongzhuang, her pretty face full of curiosity. Boss, what did Xiao He and Xiao Bai find out? Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. Jiqing, why do you call me that? Xia Jiqing chuckled. I think Xiaoman's words are very good. I will call you boss in the future. In fact, I've always thought of you as my boss, haha. Jiqing, we've been friends for a long time. Bailey Hongzhuang was somewhat helpless. Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin had obviously made up their minds to call her this way. They simply didn't allow Bailey Hongzhuang to refuse. She didn't expect that now Xia Jiqing would also join in the nonsense. Xia Jiqing waved her hand. What does it matter? I just changed the way I addressed him. In the future, when I tell others that you are my boss, they will definitely be shocked and envious of me. No one knew that in the near future, everything would be like what Xia Jiqing said today. Seeing Xia Jiqing being so stubborn, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer said anything. Since Xia Jiqing was willing, then let her be. Master, we just heard a piece of good news. Blackie said with a smile. There are fluctuations of ancient ruins in the small world, and it will soon appear. Now many cultivators are rushing to the place where the ancient ruins are located. We can't miss this good opportunity. Chapter 1342. As Xiao He and Xiao Bai's words fell, Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. Before she entered the small world, she had already heard Bewitching say that there were inheritances in the small world. It was just that it depended on one's luck to encounter a relic. According to Bewitching, the relics in this small world were very extraordinary. They were of a higher level than the relics in the outside world. This was because those who entered the small world and left behind inheritances were extremely powerful cultivators. It was just that she had been in the small world for a long time, but she had not heard any news about the ancient relics. After all, to cultivators, ancient ruins were opportunities that could only be encountered by chance and not sought after. If they encountered it, they were lucky. If they did not encounter it, they could not force it. She did not expect that there would be news about the ancient relics. This was a great fortune. After hearing Xiao He and Xiao Bai's words, Xia Jiqing could not help but exclaim, "Is what you said true? An ancient relic has appeared?" As Xia Jiqing's voice came out, the expressions of Gong Shaoqing and the others changed a bit. This news was really amazing. Ancient relics. They had seen the ancient relics before and had obtained great benefits from it. They did not expect that they would have the opportunity to see the ancient relics again. This was really too lucky. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman could not hide the excitement on their faces. They had always heard of the ancient relics, but they had never had the chance to encounter one. Now they had the opportunity to see the ancient relics. This must not be missed. In the next moment, Gong Shaoqing and the others walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and listened to Xiao He and Xiao Bai talk about the news. Where did the ancient relics appear? Bailey Hongzhuang quickly calmed down. The appearance of the ancient relics was naturally excellent news, but how many excellent cultivators were there in the small world? Such a big movement could not be hidden. Since they could get the news of the ancient relics, she believed that other cultivators could also get it. As a result, the competition for the ancient relics would become extremely fierce. Wuguang City. Xiao He and Xiao Xiao exclaimed in unison. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately checked the map. Wuguang City was still some distance away from their current location, and it would take at least half a month to reach there. The distance is quite far. By the time we get there, will the ruins have already been opened? Bai Junyu frowned. The opening of the ruins would not wait for anyone. If they could not make it in time, it would be equivalent to completely losing this opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang kept thinking. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, what else have you heard? Tell me the details. Xiao He and Xiao Bai nodded slightly and immediately repeated the words of those cultivators to Bailey Hongzhuang. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard all of this, her eyes lit up. They said that they felt the fluctuations of the ancient relics. This proves that the ancient relics have not appeared yet. Even if the ancient relics appear, it will take a long time for the restrictions to disappear. We should be able to make it in time. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly made a judgment. She had seen the relics in her previous life, so she was very familiar with the situation when the relics appeared. Chapter 1343. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman looked at each other. Looking at the wise Bailey Hongzhuang, they could only admire her. Although they had heard about the ancient ruins, they didn't know anything about it. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to judge so many things. This was enough to prove that Bailey Hongzhuang was very knowledgeable. Thinking of this, the two of them sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang was just from a small dynasty. Not to mention her strength, she could even understand these things that ordinary people didn't understand. It was amazing. Really? Xia Jiqing clasped her hands together, her pretty face unable to hide her excitement. So we can still make it in time. Let's set off quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. If my judgment is not wrong, we should be able to make it in time. Let's speed up and try to reach Wuguang City as soon as possible. Dongfang Yu's handsome and cold face showed a trace of seriousness. Such a good opportunity, none of them wanted to miss it. Although it was extremely difficult to obtain an inheritance from so many cultivators, there was always hope in his heart. The ancient ruins this time are different from the ones we saw last time. Moreover, there will be a lot of cultivators competing for it. Once this news spreads, the teams of large dynasties will come. With our strength, it won't be easy to get benefits from it. At that time, everyone must be more careful. Life is the most important thing. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. They really couldn't let this joy get to their heads. For a long time, this assessment competition had been the world of large dynasty cultivators. It was very difficult for medium dynasty cultivators to get a good performance, let alone small dynasty cultivators. Not only were there more cultivators from large dynasty cultivators, but their strength was generally stronger than medium dynasty cultivators. With the strength of their team, the possibility of them standing out was too small. We understand. Seeing the dignified look on everyone's face, Bailey Hongzhuang was also relieved. The situation in the small world was different from the outside world. The reason why they were able to obtain the inheritance so smoothly last time was because of the miasma. If it weren't for the fact that the other cultivators were unable to break through that layer of miasma, the competition would have become much more intense. It was very likely that they would not have been able to obtain this final inheritance. Moreover, the cultivators who came to participate in the assessment were all dragons and phoenixes among men. There was no such thing as the strongest cultivation talent, only stronger. Although she was very confident in her strength and talent, she would not be blindly confident. Only by recognizing reality could one strive for the possibility of doing well. After finding out about the appearance of the ancient ruins, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not waste any more time. The matter of hunting demonic beasts was temporarily put aside. At this time, the most important thing was to go to Wuguang City. However, without the white lion's aura, the demonic beasts in the small world would always emerge endlessly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could only kill the demonic beasts as they traveled. In the process of killing the demonic beasts, everyone's strength was constantly increasing. Time flew by like a white steed. Soon, nearly half a month had passed. Chapter 1344. As time gradually passed, the news of the ancient ruins near Wuguang City spread more and more widely. All the cultivators were heading to Wuguang City. Regardless of whether they could obtain benefits from the ancient ruins in the end, as long as they heard the news, the cultivators would not let it go. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found that more and more cultivators were walking around them. In the process, there were also some teams that fought because of a disagreement, but most of the teams were wholeheartedly rushing to Wuguang City. After all, they did not know when the ancient ruins would open. Only by arriving at Wuguang City one step earlier would they have more hope of obtaining the inheritance. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also walked on their own and did not deal with any teams. Naturally, they did not cause any conflicts. Under such a hurry, finally, at dusk, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others successfully arrived at Wuguang City. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked into Wuguang City, they found that the number of cultivators in Wuguang City was simply beyond their expectations. The entire city seemed to be filled with people. A wave of noise swept over from all directions, filling everyone's ears. My God, there are too many cultivators in Wuguang City, right? Xia Jiqing's mouth twitched. Although she had expected that there would be many cultivators here, she still felt that she had underestimated it. The cities in the small world were not small. The closer to the center of the small world, the bigger the city. Wuguang City was not a small city. Although there were many cultivators when they entered the city on weekdays, many places were still empty. It was difficult to find an empty place in Wuguang City in front of them. We're not too late. In a few days, there will be even more people. Dong Fangyu looked around and said. Yuan Jixin nodded slightly. Looking at the situation, the ancient ruins have not appeared yet. Otherwise, there would not be so many cultivators here. Listening to Yuan Jixin's words, everyone's faces showed a smile. Everything was as Yuan Jixin said. As long as the ancient ruins had not opened, they still had a chance. Let's see if there are any houses to stay in first. Her clear and bright phoenix eyes revealed a hint of worry. There were so many cultivators in Wuguang City. It would not be easy for them to find a house. If they could not find a house, then they would have to rest on the street. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, everyone also came back to their senses. They would think about the ruins later. The most important thing now was to find a house to rest. All the way to the interior of the city, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found that the surrounding houses were already occupied. It was too difficult to find an empty house. It's over. I'm afraid there are no houses. Yuan Xiaoman's face showed a deep sense of helplessness. They had stayed in this small world for a few months, but they had never encountered such a thing. Let's continue searching. If there really isn't a house, then we'll think of something. Yuan Jixin patted Yuan Xiaoman's shoulder. As far as the current situation was concerned, the possibility of finding the house was very small. However, until they saw the last room, they couldn't say for sure that there was no hope. Chapter 1345. Boss, if we can't find a house to stay in, then we can only live on the street, right? Xia Jiqing looked helplessly at Bailey Hongzhuang. This was something she had never thought of before. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the surrounding environment and nodded. It should be like this. My God. Xia Jiqing lowered her head. Today, she only hoped to take a bath quickly, but now it seemed that there was no way. Looking at Xia Jiqing's listless appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. It doesn't matter. Even if we are the first cultivators to rest on this street, there will be many cultivators coming one after another. At that time, we will definitely not be the only team. Bailey Hongzhuang was very open-minded. This feeling was similar to being in the outer camp. Resting in the city was much safer than resting outside the city. They wouldn't be attacked by demonic beasts. Anyway, they wouldn't be staying in Wuguang City for too long. They just had to wait for the restriction to dissipate. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was so optimistic, Xia Jiqing also stopped complaining. Speaking of which, she had rested in the wilderness many times, but it was a bit strange to stay on the street under the gaze of so many cultivators. As the 7 people continued to search, finally, when everyone was about to give up, they suddenly found 2 empty houses. They couldn't help but brighten up. Haha, there are still 2 houses, that's great. Xia Jiqing laughed. Although the number of houses was not many, it was much better than no houses at all. In that case, the men will have 1 room, and the women will have 1 room? Yuan Xiaoman asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Let's arrange it like this. They would not stay in Wuguang City for long, so 2 houses were enough. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were about to enter the house, a loud voice sounded behind them. These 2 houses, we want them. Listening to the arrogant voice behind them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others frowned and turned around one after another. In his line of sight, he saw a burly man looking at them with disdain. The group of cultivators behind him also held their heads high and were extremely pleased with themselves. His arrogant demeanor made it seem as if he didn't care about Bailey Hongzhuang and the others at all. After seeing the appearance of this group of cultivators, Xia Jiqing couldn't help but get close to Bailey Hongzhuang's ear and said, Boss, they are the cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She was no stranger to the group of cultivators in front of her. The Star Bright Dynasty was one of the teams that came with them when they were rushing from other cities to Wuguang City. However, unlike them, the Star Dynasty was extremely arrogant. Whenever a cultivator provoked them, they would directly attack. Along the way, they had witnessed the deaths of many cultivators who had clashed with the Star Bright Dynasty. It was just that they didn't expect to meet them here. The Star Bright Dynasty was also a medium-sized dynasty. Among the medium-sized dynasties, the Star-Bright dynasty was definitely one of the best. It was precisely because of this that the cultivators of the Star-Bright dynasty were so arrogant. Chapter 1346. Didn't you hear what I said? The burly man, Lei Penghai, raised his voice. I said, we want these 2 houses. Why aren't you guys scramming? Seeing that a conflict had broken out here, many cultivators turned their gazes over. This Lei Penghai is looking for trouble again. No matter where he goes, he will cause trouble. So what if he's strong? Usually, he can only be arrogant in front of small and medium-sized empires. When he meets cultivators from large empires, he can only be subservient. I can only say that this team is unlucky. It wasn't easy to find 2 empty houses, but now they have to give them away. With the strength of Star-Bright Dynasty's team, other teams don't dare to provoke them except for large empires. Everyone shook their heads. Now, whoever met the Star-Bright Dynasty's cultivators would be unlucky and could only obediently give up. However, in the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's words shocked all the cultivators present. Who are you asking to scram? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Lei Penghai coldly. Her voice was oppressive and threatening. Previously, the Star-Bright Dynasty's cultivators did not provoke them. Naturally, they would not meddle in other people's business. Now that the Star-Bright Dynasty's cultivators took the initiative to find trouble with them, they were not to be trifled with. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Lei Penghai was also stunned for a moment. It seemed that he did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have an opinion on his words. He suddenly chuckled, but his expression became more and more ferocious. I asked you to scram. Didn't you hear me? Lei Penghai's eyes were malicious and ruthless. He was very familiar with the team in front of him. He originally thought that this team would know not to be enemies with them when they saw them teach the other empires a lesson. Now, they actually dared to say such words. It seemed that they did not know what was good for them. After hearing Lei Penghai's contemptuous words, Gong Shaoqing and the others showed anger in their eyes. This group of people really thought that they were great just because they had some strength. They were simply walking sideways. Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of telling us to scram? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice, and her calm and indifferent face was also filled with a fierce look. She didn't provoke the cultivators of the Star-Bright dynasty because she didn't want trouble. However, since the other party was looking for trouble, they were not to be trifled with either. The surrounding cultivators were speechless when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's explosive words. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. Which dynasty is this cultivator from? How dare you shout at the cultivators of the Star-Bright dynasty? I don't know. I've never seen them before. This shouldn't be the case. If it's an expert from a medium-sized dynasty, then they shouldn't be so unfamiliar. If you're not strong enough and still dare to talk to the cultivators of the Star-Bright dynasty like that, you're really courting death. When Lei Penghai heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the malice in his eyes deepened. He immediately slapped Bailey Hongzhuang's face. This woman's words made him very unhappy. To Lei Penghai, there was no such thing as having tender feelings for the fairer sex. Any cultivator who made him unhappy only had a dead end. Seeing Lei Penghai's silent and direct attack, everyone only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's face was going to be ruined. Chapter 1347. When Lei Penghai made his move, Bailey Hongzhuang was also very fast. Her right hand immediately went up to meet the attack. Bang! When the 2 palms collided, Bailey Hongzhuang took a step back, but Lei Penghai did not move at all. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She had already heard that Lei Penghai's strength was very shocking. At this moment, when their palms collided, she felt it even more deeply. Her strength was not weak compared to other cultivators of the same cultivation level, but there was still a certain gap between her and Lei Penghai. Lei Penghai's attainment in strength was evident. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Lei Penghai carefully. No wonder Lei Penghai's body was so strong. He must have spent a lot of effort on the cultivation of his strength. She is no match for him. The spectating cultivators shook their heads. Just from this exchange, they could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang was no match for Lei Penghai. Lei Penghai's strength has always been very strong. I heard that he is a natural strength cultivator. Cultivators of the same level are no match for him at all. Gong Shaoqing and the others also had a serious look in their eyes. They already knew that Lei Penghai's strength was strong, but now they knew more about Lei Penghai's strength. It seemed that this exchange would take a lot of effort. However, compared to the other cultivators, the cultivators of the Star Dynasty also frowned. According to their thoughts, Bailey Hongzhuang should have taken a few steps back after Lei Penghai's attack. However, Bailey Hongzhuang only took one step back. This was a little strange. Lei Penghai looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a little surprise. All along, not to mention women, even men would take a few steps back when they collided with him. He did not expect this woman's strength to be so strong. It seemed that the strength of this team was not weak. However, no matter how strong the other party was, as long as a team from a dynasty offended him, there was only one ending, death. I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to scram or not? Lei Penghai's voice was full of threats. If it were other cultivators, he would have already attacked. However, he vaguely felt that the strength of this team was not weak. If they were to fight, it would be troublesome. There was not much time left before the ancient ruins appeared. At this time, it was best to preserve their fighting strength. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sneered and her eyes suddenly turned cold. I'll give you one last chance. Either scram or die. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang's words finished, Gong Shaoqing and the others had already took out their weapons. They definitely would not leave. The cultivators of the Star Dynasty's cultivators did not have the strength to make them do so. They did not have the strength. The anger in the hearts of Lei Penghai and the rest instantly surged. It had been a long time since they had met such an arrogant opponent. Kill them. The Hongzhuangs, ants, the cultivators, was as well. For the cultivators of the Starlight Dynasty, fighting was a very normal thing. They had always been prepared to fight at any time and any place. Do it. Bailey Hongzhuang also shouted coldly. The other party had used such an attitude to humiliate them. If they did not fight back, they would be too weak. Chapter 1348. As Lei Penghai's aura was released, the auras of the cultivators behind him were also released. In a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were able to determine their opponent's strength. 1 orange level rank 7, 2 orange level rank 5, 3 orange level rank 3, and 2 orange level rank 1. Seeing the strength of the Star Dynasty's cultivators, the spectators gasped. All of them were orange level cultivators. Such strength was indeed very powerful among the middle-sized dynasty's team. No wonder the Star Dynasty could do whatever they wanted. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest released their auras as well. 1 orange level rank 5, 2 orange level rank 1, and 4 red level rank 9. When the spectators saw the strength of the cultivators in Bailey Hongzhuang's team, their expressions became funny. Damn, are you kidding me? How dare you compete with the Star Dynasty's cultivators with such strength? Aren't you digging your own grave? Even if you want to show off, you have to see if you have the strength to do so. With just this little bit of strength, he can only be crushed. I can already imagine how they'll all die. They're really overestimating themselves. The spectators were speechless and lost interest in watching the battle. After all, there was no way to change such a huge gap in strength. After Lei Penghai saw the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, his heart was also speechless. Previously, when he felt the power of Bailey Hongzhuang, he was surprised and thought that the other party was not a good person to mess with. Now, it seemed that he had overestimated her. She wanted to compete with them with such strength. She was just digging her own grave. Which dynasty are you from? Lei Penghai's eyes were filled with mockery. He had to remember the name of the dynasty so that he could use it as a model for cultivators who overestimated themselves. Tiangang Dynasty. Bailey Hongzhuang was still calm in the face of everyone's mockery. No one would know the outcome until the very last moment. Gong Shaoqing and the others were not in a hurry. Their team still had Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Although the gap now seemed huge, once Bailey Hongzhuang used her blood aura, the gap would quickly decrease. Speaking of which, the final outcome was still uncertain. What small dynasty? I've never even heard of it. Lei Penghai smiled mockingly. He had always only remembered the names of powerful empires. He couldn't even be bothered to remember the names of empires that weren't strong enough. Since he had never heard of this dynasty, it proved that the other party's strength was not enough to enter his eyes. Very soon, you will clearly remember the name of this dynasty. Gong Shaoqing said coldly. Cut the crap, let's do it. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold. At this point, there was no need to waste any more time. Since they were going to fight, they might as well end it quickly. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to take the initiative to provoke them despite such a huge gap in strength, the cultivators of the Star Dynasty could not help but laugh. This is too interesting. This is too interesting. The cultivators of the Star Dynasty chuckled. Boss, since they can't wait to die, let's fulfill their wish. Chapter 1349. Then let's fulfill their wish. Lei Penghai laughed, and a huge axe immediately appeared in his hand. Boom! Lei Penghai put the axe on the ground, and the huge weight immediately brought a sound. Immediately after, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, a spiderweb-like crack rapidly spread out on the ground with the axe as the center. Seeing the appearance of this crack, everyone took a breath of cold air. Just from this situation, they could judge how amazing the weight of the axe was. Lei Penghai's mind moved, and the pressure of the Orange Realm's 7th level spread out in an instant, quickly enveloping Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. With the appearance of this pressure, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately felt a huge pressure suppressing them. It was as if there was a huge stone on their backs, and their movements became slower. Xia Jiqing, Gong Shaoqing and the others felt it especially obvious. The lower the level, the greater the suppression. Under this pressure, let alone the Red Realm 9th level, they couldn't even exert the strength of the Red Realm 7th level. Looking at Xia Jiqing and the others who had been suppressed to this point by just releasing a pressure, Lei Penghai and the others laughed more and more arrogantly. With this strength, you want to fight with us? You are really looking for death. Boss, in my opinion, you don't even need to do anything. We are enough to solve them. Lei Penghai's face was also filled with a presumptuous smile. Indeed, but there is no need to waste time with this kind of trash. The earlier we solve it, the earlier we can rest. After the onlookers saw such a big gap in strength, some of the cultivators couldn't bear to continue watching. This was completely humiliating. Listening to the ridicule and sarcasm of the other party, Gong Shaoqing and the others were also livid. This group of guys was really too much. This is intolerable, this group of guys is really too arrogant. Xiao He and Xiao Bai couldn't help but explode. After participating in the assessment competition for so long, they had never seen such an arrogant team. Compared with the Bright Star Dynasty's practitioners, the practitioners from the Cosmos Dynasty were not so annoying. Looking at the complacent Lei Penghai, Bailey Hongzhuang's yuan power poured out in an instant. At the same time, the pressure of the blood aura field exploded. Boom! Everyone could only feel a faint smell of blood spreading in the air. Then, a pressure that was not weaker than Lei Penghai's appeared. In front of everyone's eyes, the two oppressive forces collided with each other with a loud bang. Immediately afterward, Xia Jiqing and the others found that the pressure that had been suppressing them dissipated in a short time, and their bodies returned to their previous lightness. Lei Penghai couldn't help but be shocked. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. How is this possible? Bailey Hongzhuang was clearly at Orange Realm level 5. How could her aura defeat his Orange Realm level 7 aura? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up into a sneer. Frog at the bottom of the well. It was just a simple word, but it made Lei Penghai's face uncontrollably filled with anger. Damn woman, you actually called me a frog at the bottom of the well. Chapter 1350. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were not slow at all. The glass sword appeared in her hand in an instant, and she went to meet Lei Penghai's axe. Ding! The crisp sound of the metal meeting spread out, and Bailey Hongzhuang's figure took 2 steps back. Lei Penghai's strength was really amazing. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not have any damage under his blow, Lei Penghai's dissatisfaction became heavier and heavier. His whole body once again rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. One must know that when he fought with his opponent on ordinary days, just a collision of strength was enough to injure his opponent. Obviously, this Bailey Hongzhuang was also an exception. The most important thing was that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was lower than his by 2 levels, but she could still resist his attack, which made people even more dissatisfied. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai quickly fought together, and the sound of metal continued to spread. The glass sword in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand also formed a sharp contrast with the huge axe in Lei Penghai's hand. They were not in the same weight class. However, under such a contrast, everyone was surprised to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's sword was not affected at all, which was very amazing. People with discerning eyes could see that the sword in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand was a treasure. If it was an ordinary weapon, it would have already been broken in half under Lei Penghai's axe. For a while, everyone was a little envious. However, this treasure was destined to fall into the hands of the Star Dynasty's cultivators, and they could only watch. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai were fighting, the Star Dynasty's cultivators were also fighting with Xia Jiqing and others. With the spread of Bailey Hongzhuang's blood chi field, the Star Dynasty's cultivators were all affected to a certain extent. Even if they tried their best to offset this impact, it was still useless. Now there was only one thought in their minds: it was really a ghost. What was originally a huge gap had actually been rapidly narrowed at this moment. It was simply too strange. However, Gong Shaoqing and the others had no intention of explaining. Since they had narrowed the gap in strength, they naturally had to seize the opportunity. Although the 2 orange level rank 5 cultivators from the Star Bright dynasty could only unleash the power of an orange level rank 4, they were not worried. Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang, the strongest cultivator in the Tiangang dynasty was only at orange realm rank 1. With their strength, dealing with it was not a problem at all. However, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman did not even care about the 2 orange level 5 cultivators. They had already turned their attention to the orange level rank 3 cultivators. Those were their real opponents. The 2 orange level rank 5 cultivators were displeased that they were ignored. You're asking for it. Just as they were about to attack Yuan Jixin and his companion, 2 streaks of light, one black and one white, suddenly approached them at high speed. Before they could see clearly what it was, the 2 of them had already been attacked in front of their faces. Your opponents are us. Xiao He and Xiao Bai crossed their arms in front of their chest and struck a pose with their backs facing each other. They looked at the 2 cultivators in front of them and sneered. The 2 cultivators were stunned when they saw the 2 beasts. Who are you? We are the famous black-white double demons. Xiao He and Xiao Bai said in unison. Chapter 1351. These 2 beasts can talk. Hua Zhixing could not help but look at Yao Junnan, who was next to him. Before he could react, he had seen two beasts that could talk. Yao Junnan nodded blankly. I think so. Looking at Hua Zhixing and Yao Junnan's shocked faces, Xiao He and Xiao Bai could not help but look at each other and mocked, frogs at the bottom of a well. These two beasts dare to act so arrogantly in front of us. Let's get rid of them first. Hua Zhixing's face was filled with ferocity again. Although it was shocking that the beasts could talk, it was clearly not the time to be surprised. Yao Junnan nodded and the origin energy in his body exploded rapidly, attacking Xiao He mercilessly. Seeing that these two annoying fellows dared to look down on them, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes were filled with anger. This was the first time the twin ghosts of Black and White had announced their names in front of cultivators. These two fellows dared to look down on them. They must have a death wish. In the next moment, Xiao He and Xiao Bai attacked ferociously. Bang! Bang bang bang! Hua Zhixing and Xiao Bai, who were initially full of confidence, became more and more shocked as they fought Xiao He and Xiao Bai. They did not expect these two beasts' cultivation to be so powerful. Orange Realm Level 5. They were both at Orange Realm Level 5. Until now, they had never seen contract beasts with such a high cultivation base. It would have been fine if their abilities were not suppressed. However, now that their abilities were suppressed, they could only be beaten up by two contract beasts. This was an insult. It was an insult to their dignity. Bang! Xiao Bai did not give the other party any time to wail and kicked Hua Zhixing's face hard. How dare this bunch of trash fight with them? They must have a death wish. The onlooking cultivators were equally dumbfounded when they saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai. They had never noticed the two contracted beasts from the Tiangang dynasty before this. Although contracted beasts were of great help to cultivators, at their current age, they wouldn't be able to contract beasts for a long time, and the cultivation of the contracted beasts wasn't high either. Only when the contracted beast's strength matures, will it be of great use. However, these two adorable beasts had reached Orange Realm Stage 5. This was too heaven-defying. What kind of contracted beast is this? His strength is actually so strong. Master has really picked up a treasure. Everyone couldn't help but be envious. A contracted beast was a cultivator's most trustworthy companion. Now that these two contracted beasts were already so strong, their future prospects were simply limitless. It has already reached Orange Level 5. What a powerful contracted beast it will be in the future. I wonder which cultivator contracted these beasts. I've never seen such beasts before. This is so strange. Some of the cultivators who were not paying attention to the battle stopped when they saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai. This was incredible. Beili Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai's battle was getting more and more intense. Their battle techniques were constantly being used. Compared to Beili Hongzhuang's calmness, Lei Penghai's heart was already depressed to the extreme. Chapter 1352. In my opinion, although the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty are usually very arrogant, their strength is not that strong. I thought Lei Penghai was powerful, but now he is being suppressed by a woman who is 2 ranks lower than him. This is going to be a good show. When Lei Penghai heard the mocking from the surrounding cultivators, he was even more furious. These people were just standing there and talking without knowing what they were talking about. Heaven-splitting axe. Lei Penghai shouted as the elemental force in his body surged out. He could not stand to continue fighting with Beili Hongzhuang. He wanted to defeat Beili Hongzhuang in the shortest time possible. Only then would his reputation not be ruined. Lei Penghai's hands kept moving and complicated seals appeared one after another. Everyone keenly sensed that the essence energy in the surrounding air was rapidly surging towards Lei Penghai. Just from this momentum, they could tell that this martial technique was extraordinary. Beili Hongzhuang frowned. If she was right, Lei Penghai's skill should be an intermediate mystic level skill. It was of a high level and powerful. Bailey Hongzhuang, just wait for your death. Lei Penghai glared at Bailey Hongzhuang fiercely. This despicable woman dared to lower his reputation. After all, he, Lei Penghai, was a figure that possessed an illustrious reputation amongst all the cultivators from the small and medium dynasties. How could he allow a woman to affect his reputation? Looking at Lei Penghai's arrogant look, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned cold. Lei Penghai, we don't know who will win yet. It's too early for you to make a judgment. Lei Penghai sneered, do you really think you can defeat me? What a joke. Bailey Hongzhuang was not bothered by Lei Penghai's mockery. The orange level 5 elemental force in her body flowed into her hands. At the same time, complicated seals appeared one after another. The crowd could only see Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai facing each other. The battle between the two of them was already shocking enough. They just did not know who would win this battle. In just a few seconds, everyone saw a huge axe appear in the air behind Lei Penghai. That axe looked like an enlarged version of the axe Lei Penghai was using. I've already heard that Lei Penghai's axe is an incredible treasure. When used together with a martial skill, it has an extremely powerful might. From the looks of it now, Lei Penghai is currently using this move. This is Lei Penghai's ultimate skill. I heard that Lei Penghai used this skill to defeat a cultivator who was stronger than him. Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation is 2 levels lower than Lei Penghai's. Now that Lei Penghai has used his ultimate skill, doesn't that mean that Bailey Hongzhuang has no hope? With Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, it is already very difficult for her to persist until now. Do you really think that Bailey Hongzhuang can defeat Lei Penghai? The balance instantly shifted towards Lei Penghai's direction. Many cultivators had heard of Lei Penghai's name. Bailey Hongzhuang might not be able to make a comeback. Chapter 1353. The origin energy in Bailey Hongzhuang's body circulated in a special circulation meridian, and she acutely sensed that Lei Penghai's move was not simple. The energy fluctuation emitted caused her heart to palpitate. If she was not careful, she would probably fall into danger. Immediately after, everyone noticed that the aura that Bailey Hongzhuang exploded out was also extremely extraordinary, and their gazes instantly changed. Lei Penghai looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in puzzlement. He could similarly feel the might of Bailey Hongzhuang's move. Thinking about it, Bailey Hongzhuang's move should also be a profound intermediate rank martial skill. He did not expect that this unknown dynasty's cultivator had so many methods. Dark sky-colored glazed sword. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly, and a dense mist appeared behind her. Everyone was surprised to discover that these weapons were actually completely condensed from origin energy. A wisp of paleness quietly appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite jade-like face. The output of so much origin energy was similarly an enormous pressure to her. She had grasped quite a number of martial skills, but with her current cultivation, the number of martial skills that she could execute was not many. After all, the stronger the martial skill, the more origin energy it consumed. With all the origin energy in her body, it could be said that it was extremely difficult to execute it. If she forcefully executed it due to insufficient origin energy, not only would she be unable to achieve the desired effect, but it would also damage the meridians in her body, causing the opposite effect. In the next instant, Bailey Hongzhuang's hand seals suddenly changed. Immediately after, everyone saw a glass-like light mixed with a tyrannical aura appear from the dense mist. Taking a closer look, the glass-like light was actually a sharp sword. Everyone's eyes lit up. Wasn't the appearance of this sharp sword exactly the same as the sword in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand? Heavens, this Bailey Hongzhuang's weapon actually has a derived martial skill. Looks like they are on par. It seems that this Bailey Hongzhuang's weapon is indeed not simple. I'm afraid it is of the same level as Lei Penghai's weapon. Even if their martial skills are of the same level, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation is ultimately inferior to Lei Penghai's. This battle will definitely be won by Lei Penghai. Everyone nodded one after another. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang used some unknown method to suppress Lei Penghai's cultivation, there would still be a difference in the effects of the martial skills displayed by the two people. Most of the cultivators present concluded that the final winner of this battle would definitely be the Star Dynasty's cultivator. However, the Tiangang Dynasty's cultivators had already given them quite a bit of a shock. Dynasty's Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivator. Lei Penghai and Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes met, and both of them had a ruthless look in their eyes. In the next moment, the two people's minds moved, and the two powerful martial skills collided in an instant. Boom! A thunderous sound struck everyone's ears. The tyrannical energy wreaked havoc rapidly. Everyone could only see a black and a white light colliding in mid-air, constantly eroding each other's energy. The sky seemed to have darkened under this attack. Sand and pebbles flew and the wind whistled, blurring the eyes of the surrounding cultivators. The sudden eruption of such a huge commotion attracted the attention of all the cultivators in Wuguang City. Chapter 1354. The cultivators of the Bright Star Dynasty and the Tiangang Dynasty couldn't help but stop their attacks. Such a terrifying collision made them understand that their opponents were not simple. They just didn't know who had the upper hand in this battle. After all, when the two dynasty teams fought, the battle between the strongest cultivators often determined the final success or failure. The cultivators of the Bright Star Dynasty were also a little surprised. Usually, there were not many opponents who could make Lei Penghai use this move. The other party was just a nameless dynasty, but they could force Lei Penghai to use his unique skill. This point alone was enough to let them understand the strength of the other party. Not only Lei Penghai, but they also felt the power of the other party when they fought with the cultivators of the Tiangang Dynasty. It was more difficult to deal with than the dynasty teams they had expected. If they had known that the other party was so difficult to deal with, they would not have competed with the other party for the house. However, now that things had come to this point, it was too late for them to regret. They could only continue. Xia Jiqing looked at the crazy raging energy, and her clear eyes were filled with a touch of worry. This collision of energy is so terrifying. Will boss be okay? Dongfang Yu frowned slightly. I have never seen Hongzhuang use this move. This power is stronger than the blue flame's sacred palm. Gong Shaoqing nodded slightly. He had also noticed the situation between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai before. He had to say that Lei Penghai's strength was indeed very strong. However, Hongzhuang's strength was not weak either. As for who would emerge victorious between the two of them, he was unable to determine. Yuan Jixin and Gu Xiaoman's faces showed a worried look. There was a two-stage gap between Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai. It was not a simple thing to cross it. With the appearance of this collision, the cultivators of Wuguang City rushed to the place where Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai were fighting. They wanted to know which two dynasties' cultivators had a conflict. Not long after, the smoke gradually dissipated. Everyone was surprised to find that in the center of the energy collision, a huge deep pit appeared. Around this deep pit, cracks like a spider web quietly spread out. Seeing such destructive power, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. It should be known that the cities in this small world were built with extremely hard rocks for the sake of being sturdy enough. However, the collision of Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Yunfei's strength was able to cause such great destruction. It was enough to show how terrifying the energy was. As the energy dissipated, everyone quickly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai, wanting to know the final outcome. Soon, everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang. Her pure white dress was now covered in smoke and dust, and she looked a little disheveled. There were a few blood flowers blooming on the dress, like blooming red plum blossoms. It was very beautiful. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was a little pale. It was unknown whether it was due to the exhaustion of her energy or the injuries from the collision. However, from this situation, it could be determined that Bei Li Hongzhuang was not having a good time either. Immediately after, everyone immediately looked at Lei Penghai, wanting to know how Lei Penghai was after such a collision. Chapter 1355. They saw that Lei Penghai's clothes were covered with blood and his pale face was devoid of blood. It was obvious that he had suffered extremely serious injuries. Boom! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard and everyone saw Lei Penghai's figure fall heavily to the ground. From the gradually fading light in his eyes, everyone could tell that Lei Penghai had already fallen. Hiss! Everyone's face was filled with disbelief. No matter from which angle, the Tian Gang dynasty's cultivators should have a dead end against the Xing Ming dynasty's cultivators. However, the result now shocked everyone. How is this possible? Lei Penghai's strength is so strong, but he died in the hands of a woman whose cultivation is weaker than him. This is what it means to fail miserably in an easy task. However, I don't understand why this woman is only at Orange Realm level 5. Why is her combat power so strong? It seems that the Tian Gang dynasty's cultivators are not to be trifled with. At this moment, everyone's gaze towards Bei Li Hongzhuang and the others had changed. If they didn't put Bei Li Hongzhuang and the others in their eyes before, they no longer dared to hold the same indifferent thoughts as before. Clearly, the strength of this unknown dynasty's cultivator was extremely powerful. Perhaps he was a dark horse that emerged from this medium-sized dynasty. In this assessment competition, the strength of most teams could be judged from the strength of their dynasty. However, there would occasionally be some special situations. For example, a dynasty that was not strong enough suddenly burst out with a few talented cultivators. This undoubtedly became a dark horse in the assessment competition. In their view, Bei Li Hongzhuang and the others were obviously this dark horse. In this assessment competition, I'm afraid that the Tian Gang dynasty will be famous. Everyone nodded. Even if they didn't know which dynasty the Tian Gang dynasty was, just looking at the strength of Bei Li Hongzhuang and the others, they needed to be careful. The Xing Ming dynasty's cultivators were fighting with Xia Jiqing and the others. Suddenly, they heard a gasp from the crowd and they were distracted to look to the side. When they saw that Lei Penghai had actually died in the hands of Bei Li Hongzhuang, their hearts were filled with shock and fear. This was simply impossible. With Lei Penghai's strength and battle prowess, how could he be defeated by Bei Li Hongzhuang? This woman must have used some despicable means. Otherwise, boss wouldn't have died in her hands. Hua Zhixing said angrily. Lei Penghai was the strongest person in their team. Once Lei Penghai fell, the strength of their Star Bright Dynasty's team would be greatly reduced. Yao Zhenan's expression also became incomparably ugly. Previously, when Lei Penghai was present, their team could be said to be incomparably arrogant, offending countless opponents. However, now that Lei Penghai was dead, it was likely that many teams would seek revenge. At the thought of this, Yao Junnan seemed to foresee the dark days ahead. Damn it! Kill them all! Yao Junnan shouted angrily. The cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty also found it hard to accept after learning this, so they all burst out in anger. They only wanted to kill all the culprits. Chapter 1356. Even though they knew that Hong Zhuang's combat effectiveness had always been amazing, Hong Zhuang's strength was still 2 levels lower than Lei Penghai's. Even with the existence of the Blood Qi field, Lei Penghai's strength was suppressed, but it was still at the level of Orange Realm level 5 or Orange Realm level 6. What's more, Lei Penghai's background and strength were more powerful than the cultivators they had encountered before. The stronger the background of the cultivator, the more means they had and the stronger their combat effectiveness. This was also why some cultivators with strong backgrounds, even if they had the same cultivation level, their combat effectiveness was far from what ordinary people could compare to. However, for Bai Lihong's appearance, it seemed that all these factors did not exist. They thought that the battle between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Penghai would last the longest, who knew that it would end the fastest. Boss is really abnormal. Xia Jiqing froze for a moment, then helplessly shook her head and said such a sentence. Yuan Xiaoman's face was full of worship. Boss is really amazing, this is a woman's idol. In ordinary battles, the combat effectiveness of women was often not as good as men. However, the team of the Tiangang dynasty was obviously not like this. Who said that women were not as good as men? Boss was the real portrayal. Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fangyu, and Bai Junyu looked at each other. The strength that Hong Zhuang broke out in every battle was really amazing. This could not help but make them feel frustrated. No matter how hard they cultivated, it seemed that it was impossible to catch up with Hong Zhuang. We can't fall too far behind, let's fight. Bai Junyu shouted. Hong Zhuang had already solved the difficult to deal with Lei Penghai, the rest was left to them to solve. Ding! The glass sword pierced the ground. Bailey Hongzhuang gasped for breath, her eyes revealing the light of lingering fear. She had to admit that Lei Penghai's strength was indeed very strong. Lei Penghai's martial arts just now was really powerful. If she did not exert all her strength to display the dark sky glass sword, she was afraid that the person who was seriously injured would be her. The cultivators selected by the various dynasties were all true genius cultivators, not to mention that Lei Penghai was from a powerful mid-sized dynasty. She understood that if she wanted to completely rely on her own strength to deal with Lei Penghai, it would be impossible to succeed without paying the price of half her life. Now that there were so many cultivators gathered in Wuguang City, once their team's strength was greatly reduced, it was likely that many cultivators would attack them. After all, this was a great bargain. Therefore, when the two martial skills collided, she fused a poisonous needle into the martial skill. It was impossible for Lei Penghai to realize that there was a trap in the martial technique, so the poison needle entered Lei Penghai's body extremely smoothly. With Lei Penghai's injuries, he wouldn't die. He would only die from poisoning. Bailey Hongzhuang stood where she was and quietly glanced at the cultivators who were watching. The cultivators who were originally very disdainful of Bailey Hongzhuang withdrew their gazes after noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze. They did not dare to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. With just a simple glance, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on Xia Jiqing and the others who were fighting. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's powerful and domineering side, Xia Jiqing and the others also seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. Their speed was faster and their combat effectiveness became more powerful. Chapter 1357. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that no one had shown any signs of failure, she felt relieved. As long as it wasn't a critical moment, she didn't need to make a move. After all, everyone in the team needed a chance to grow. Some of the more powerful opponents were the necessary tempering for everyone to improve. Only through these continuous battles could they accumulate more combat experience. In the future, when they fought, they would know how to best display their battle strength. Even though they had to kill monsters every day in the mountains, the intelligence of monsters couldn't be compared to human cultivators. What they could gain was experience in dealing with monsters. Bailey Hongzhuang took out a healing pill from her Qiankuan bag and swallowed it. Although there were some injuries on her body, most of them were caused by the exhaustion of the Yuan Qi in her body. It wouldn't take long for her to recover. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was watching her teammates fight, she didn't notice that among the spectators, there was a shocked gaze locked onto her. Xianyuan Huan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. He never thought that he would meet Bailey Hongzhuang in the assessment competition. According to his father, Di Beichen's identity was so noble. Why would Bailey Hongzhuang participate in the assessment competition? However, Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him made him even more experienced. As a small empire, Fengbo country had been living carefully ever since they entered the pocket dimension. As they got closer and closer to the center of the pocket dimension, more and more teams from medium-sized empires appeared around them. In such a place where experts were densely packed, they could only be careful to avoid losing their reputation. Usually, he was high and mighty, but after coming here, he realized how big the Xingxian continent was. His original arrogance had disappeared. Because, if you were to casually find a cultivator here, their identity wouldn't be any worse than his. Not to mention a powerful empire like the Star Bright Empire, even if it were a medium-sized empire, they wouldn't dare to say anything harsh. If they weren't careful, they could lose their lives. One had to know that in the history of Feng Bo country, who knows how many times the assessment competition ended in total annihilation. However, the woman in front of him was the woman he used to despise. The strength she displayed was simply amazing. In just a short 2 years, Bailey Hongzhuang's growth was simply amazing. The current Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer someone who could be restrained by a small empire. Now, he could only look up to Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's battle, Bailey Haoshuan, who was standing next to Xianyuan Huan, was completely dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that this woman with such a powerful combat strength was the trash he used to humiliate. Her strength was enough to make him look up to her. Your Highness, this woman, is she really Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Haoshuan murmured. The situation in front of him was so shocking that he couldn't believe it. Xianyuan Huan nodded. That's right, it's her. How is this possible? Haoshuan of Huang of Bailey Hongzhuang of that was that of Bailey Hongzha of that was a rank 5 Orange Realm warrior. The strongest person in their team was only at the 8th level of the Red Realm, but Bailey Hongzhuang was already at the 5th level of the Orange Realm. Chapter 1358. Xianyuan Huan shook his head with a smile, but there was a hint of bitterness in his smile. In the middle of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang was so beautiful. Even though she was injured, she was still so beautiful. He could clearly feel the admiration of the surrounding cultivators for Bailey Hongzhuang. Such a perfect woman was destined to be admired and pursued by many men. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang was his crown princess. This was originally everything that belonged to him, but he ruined it. He regretted it many times in the middle of the night. He didn't understand why he was blinded by Bailey Yuyan. The fairy-like figure he saw when he was seriously injured always lingered in his heart, and he couldn't let it go. He wished that time could go back, but he also knew that he and Bailey Hongzhuang were worlds apart. He didn't deserve her at all. Even though his father and mother had urged him to marry many times, his heart had been completely occupied by that white figure. Other women couldn't enter his eyes at all. Bailey Haoshuan didn't know what to say at this moment. Since participating in the assessment competition, his original confidence and pride had quietly disappeared. None of the cultivators here were people that he could afford to offend. He could only feel that the pressure was unbearable. Now he couldn't wait for the assessment competition to end quickly. Previously, he thought that participating in the assessment competition was an excellent opportunity, but now he felt that it was really terrible. Watching the teams fall one by one, he was really afraid that he wouldn't live to leave the small world. However, compared with his helplessness and fear, Bailey Hongzhuang was so relaxed. Your Highness, why did Bailey Hongzhuang's strength improve so much? Bailey Haoshuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. When he left Bailey Hongzhuang, his father didn't say anything to him. Until now, he still didn't understand what kind of person Bewitching was, and where Bailey Hongzhuang went later. However, just from the current situation of Bailey Hongzhuang, he could judge that Bailey Hongzhuang must be very amazing now. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't be in the team of a medium-sized empire now. Xianyuan Huan took a deep look at Bailey Hongzhuang, then chuckled and said, she should be so amazing. With Bewitching's status, he could marry Bailey Hongzhuang. This was enough to see how outstanding Bailey Hongzhuang was. Hearing the loneliness and lamentation in Xianyuan Huan's words, Bailey Haoshuan's expression changed a little, but he didn't ask any more questions. Obviously, even if he asked again, the crown prince wouldn't tell him. Bang! Bang bang! Xiao He and Xiao Bai made a fierce move at the same time, and Yao Junnan and Hua Zhixing fell to the ground almost at the same time. Looking at Yao Junnan and Hua Zhixing, who couldn't stand up anymore, Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other with a hint of pride in their eyes. Awesome! Xiao He and Xiao Bai high-fived. This annoying guy should be dealt with directly. With the fall of Yao Junnan and Hua Zhixing, the cultivators of the Star Empire could no longer remain calm. The three most powerful cultivators in the team had fallen, and the outcome of this battle was doomed. As long as the two contract beasts attacked again, they would die. Chapter 1359. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's side after the battle. Their thoughts were the same as their masters. Xia Jiqing and the others needed enough experience. When the onlookers saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the two demonic beasts stop, they already understood what they were thinking. In this way, they completely treated the other cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty as practice targets. This was a blatant disdain. However, they felt that it was normal to be looked down upon. Because the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty had already proved with their strength that they had enough qualifications to despise them. This time, the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty really failed miserably. After being arrogant for so long, they finally met a tough opponent. The cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty deserved it. They relied on their strength to be lawless. Now they are completely seeking their own deaths. Yes, watching them end up like this, I only feel very refreshed. The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty have also done a good thing. After seeing that the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty had no possibility of turning over, many cultivators couldn't help but clap their hands and cheer. The arrogant behavior of the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty had offended too many people before, but they could only swallow their anger because of the strength of the other party. Now that this group of annoying fellows had completely disappeared from this world, they were indescribably happy. For a while, everyone had a better impression of the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty. After all, the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty helped them solve a big problem. The cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty had already been in a mess, while Xia Jiqing and the others were fighting more and more happily. In such a situation, the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty could only be suppressed. Facing the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty, Xia Jiqing and the others did not have the sympathy they had before. In the process of rushing over, they had seen how many people the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty had killed. If such a guy died early, it was tantamount to saving more people. What's more, the arrogant attitude of this group of guys before had already made them very unhappy. Boom! Yuan Zhixin killed a cultivator. Boom! Gong Shaoqing then killed a cultivator. Boom boom boom. The cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty fell one by one. After Xia Jiqing knocked down the cultivator, she was about to wave to Bailey Hongzhuang. Suddenly, the cultivator quickly got up and fled outside. Seeing this scene, Xia Jiqing immediately chased after him. However, before Xia Jiqing could catch up with the cultivator, the onlookers had already kicked the cultivator back. Go to hell! Scum! Xia Jiqing looked at the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty who fell at her feet. She couldn't help but secretly be speechless. Did the cultivators of the Star Bright dynasty have heaven's anger? It was a gang. After all, the Bright dynasty, the cultivators of the Bright dynasty, the cultivators of the Bright dynasty, and the others. Xia Yan and Long Long, Shi Long Xian and the Star dynasty Yan Shao, and the others Bright dynasty and the others. And the others and Hongzhi Shis. Chapter 1360. After solving all this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others faintly glanced at the surrounding cultivators. The other cultivators also dispersed after seeing this scene. Since the commotion was over, there was no point in continuing to stay here. However, after this battle, the name of the Tiangang dynasty had entered everyone's attention. Have you heard of the Tiangang dynasty? No, today is the first time I've heard of it. I've never heard of a dynasty called the Tiangang dynasty among the medium-sized dynasties. This name is very similar to the Tiangang sect. At this moment, some cultivators who had seen Bailey Hongzhuang before could not help but show off what they knew. There's something you don't know. The Tiangang dynasty is not a medium-sized dynasty, but a small one. After a cultivator said this, some cultivators who did not know what was going on looked at the person who spoke. Are you kidding? The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty are so powerful. How can it be a small dynasty? It's a small dynasty. Previously, they were a team of 5. Later on, the other 2 cultivators who joined were not from the Tiangang dynasty, but the Snow Origin dynasty. Although there were not many cultivators who knew about Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, there were still quite a number of them. After all, when the cultivators of the Green Firmament dynasty dealt with them previously, they had attracted all the cultivators in the city with great fanfare. Now, almost all the cultivators who knew that the ruins were about to appear had rushed to Wuguang City. Therefore, many of them knew about Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After hearing the solemn words of these cultivators, the people who were already shocked by the strength of the Tiangang dynasty cultivators were even more shocked at this moment. The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty were already so powerful among the medium-sized dynasties. They did not expect them to be from a small dynasty. In that case, this was not something that could be described as a dark horse. This was simply a counterattack. While the cultivators of Wuguang City were still in shock, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked into the house one after another. Everyone was very used to dividing the points equally. Everyone's face revealed a joyful smile. The Star Brilliance Dynasty's team is really a group of fat sheep. That's a lot more points than the teams we've defeated before. Bai Junyu's clear and bright eyes flashed with a pleasantly surprised light. This distribution of points was even more than the points he originally had. In this short while, his points had already doubled. The cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty have always been looking for trouble everywhere. Who knows how many cultivator teams they have taken care of. Most of these points were not earned by them, but from other teams, Gong Shaoqing said slowly. As everyone knew, if one wanted to obtain more points, killing demonic beasts was the slowest way. Snatching points from cultivators was the fastest way. We are doing justice for the heavens. Xia Jiqing smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. These guys can be considered to have committed all sorts of evil deeds. I see that there are quite a number of teams in Wuguang City who hate them to the core. Yuan Xiaoman nodded repeatedly. That's right, I've heard a lot of people talking about it before, but boss, you're really famous now. I can see that everyone is very surprised by your strength. Chapter 1361. Let's see what's in the Qiankun bag. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with excitement. It was most interested in the Qiankun bag of the cultivators. Maybe it would encounter some great treasures. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and immediately checked the Qiankun bag of the Star Dynasty cultivators. It had to be said that just by looking at the things in the Qiankun bag, one could judge the strength of the Star Dynasty. There were quite a lot of healing pills and qi recovery pills in there. There were also some other pills so that the cultivators would not have to worry about the consequences of their cultivation. However, in addition to the Qiankun bag and food, there were not many valuable things, and there were no martial arts techniques. There are no martial arts techniques in Lei Penghai's Qiankun bag. This is too strange. Xia Jiqing's face showed disappointment. She originally thought that the martial arts techniques of the Star Dynasty cultivators were very good, and it would be great if she could take this opportunity to learn them. Unexpectedly, there were no martial arts techniques in the Qiankun bag, which was really disappointing. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but recall the martial arts techniques that Lei Penghai displayed today. The power of that martial arts technique was also great. Their martial arts level is not low, I think they didn't bring it into the small world at all. The dark phoenix eyes flashed with wisdom. Generally, martial arts techniques were very powerful, and most of the cultivators would not wear it on their bodies. Because once it was lost, it would be a huge loss. A powerful martial arts technique was enough to make a small family of a dynasty famous. Even if these martial arts techniques were not their family's treasures, they were still very important martial arts techniques, and would never be worn on their bodies. Gong Shaoqing nodded slightly. Indeed, except for some lone cultivators, there are no martial arts techniques in the Qianquan bag of the other cultivators. It was the same reason that they did not find any martial arts techniques in the Qianquan bag of the Qing Shao dynasty cultivators. Then there is nothing else that is needed. Boss, these things will be left with you. Xia Jiqing said aloud. As Xia Jiqing's voice fell, Gong Shaoqing and the others expressed their agreement. Now that Heng Zhuang was their team leader, everything was handed over to Bailey Heng Zhuang to handle. They had no objections at all. Seeing this, Bailey Heng Zhuang didn't refuse. They already had a lot of healing pills and chi recovering pills, but the more the better. It was also inconvenient for others to put it in their Qianquan pouches, so she might as well put it in her chaos ring. There was no possibility of losing it. It's getting late, everyone should go back and rest. Bailey Heng Zhuang said. With so many dynasty teams in Wuguang City, it could be said to be filled with danger everywhere. After the battle just now, they had more or less suffered some injuries. If he didn't recover to his peak condition as soon as possible, it would be terrible if something happened. Hearing Bailey Heng Zhuang's words, everyone nodded. Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fangyu, Bai Junyu and Yuan Jixin immediately left the room. Given their current situation, it was indeed necessary for them to recuperate. After Gong Shaoqing and the others left, Xia Jiqing immediately walked to Bailey Heng Zhuang's side, her pretty face showing a look of concern. Boss, you are injured. Shall I help you apply some medicine? Chapter 1362. Bailey Heng Zhuang and the others' injuries were not serious, so it did not affect their movements at all. The next day, they inquired about the ancient ruins in Wuguang City and learned about it. Now that the fluctuations of the ancient ruins were getting bigger and bigger, they believed that it would appear in a few days. However, it would take a few days for the restrictions of the ancient ruins to disappear, so everyone still had to wait for a while. After learning about the news, Bailey Heng Zhuang and the others returned to the house. Now that there were so many cultivators in Wuguang City, it was easy to get into trouble if they went out. It was better to stay quietly in the house and cultivate. When the ancient ruins opened, they could face it in their best condition. If they could get treasures in the ancient ruins, it would be really worth it. Inside the house, Xia Jiqing and Yuan Xiaoman were cultivating hard. As they saw more and more strong cultivators, the sense of urgency in their hearts grew stronger. It was said that the news of the ancient ruins had alarmed the cultivators of the large empires, and many of them were rushing to Wuguang City. If it was only the cultivators of the small and medium empires, it would be easier for them to get treasures. Once the cultivators of the large empires arrived, their strength was really not enough. In such a situation full of opportunities, they really did not want to be a burden to their boss. Therefore, they were now cultivating hard, hoping to make some progress. After all, the yuan qi in the small world was twice as rich as the outside world, and the speed of cultivation here was much faster than before. Bailey Heng Zhuang closed her eyes. On the surface, she looked like she was cultivating, but in fact, her spiritual consciousness had entered the chaos ring. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also entered the chaos ring. Since Baishir had fallen into a deep sleep until now, it had been a long time, and they did not know when Baishir would break through. Baishir has been in seclusion for a really long time this time, and he has not broken through for so long. I wonder what realm his strength will break through to. Xiao He's eyes flashed with curiosity. Before this, she didn't know White Lion's identity, so she didn't think much of it. However, ever since White Lion had made such a huge breakthrough, she felt that this guy was quite abnormal. It shouldn't be weak. After all, it has eaten a lot of monster crystals and a Sky Spirit Bear's monster crystal. It should be able to break through to orange level. Xiao Bai said after some thought. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze landed on the sleeping White Lion. The sleeping White Lion's body was very petite and its sleeping appearance was very cute. Speaking of which, she was also amazed by White Lion's method of improvement. Regardless of whether it was a human cultivator or a demonic beast, if they wanted to increase their cultivation, they would need to cultivate diligently. Normally, it would be extremely difficult to increase one's cultivation by one level. However, the White Lion did not need to go through so much trouble. He only needed to continuously consume spirits to increase his cultivation. This should be a method that only beast kings could use to increase their powers. As long as there was an endless supply of demon crystals, he believed that Baisher's speed of improvement would become faster and faster. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was filled with joy. This meant that White Lion's future was filled with endless possibilities. However, as White Lion's powers increased, she was afraid that the monster crystals he would need would also be of a higher grade. This was not a simple matter. Chapter 1363. As the appearance of the ancient ruins got closer and closer, there were more and more cultivators in Wuguang City. The streets that were originally relatively empty were now filled with cultivators, and the entire Wuguang City was overcrowded. There were many things that led to a fight. Sometimes, there would be a room-snatching storm like what Bailey Hongzhuang and the others encountered. On this day, the news that the ruins had appeared quickly spread in Wuguang City. Every day, there would be cultivators going to check the situation of the ruins. Even the cultivators in Wuguang City could feel that the fluctuations of the ruins were getting bigger and bigger. Everyone could feel that the excitement of the cultivators in Wuguang City was gradually increasing. Originally, they could still cultivate quietly, but now they were completely in a state of anxiety. Boss, I heard that there are already some cultivators guarding near the ruins. Should we also set off? After Xia Jiqing learned the news in the city, she immediately returned to the house and told Bailey Hongzhuang about the current situation. Gong Shaoqing and the others were also in the house. The opening of the ruins was getting closer and closer, and their hearts uncontrollably emerged with a sense of tension. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand slightly. The ancient ruins have just appeared today. The restriction will disappear in about 3 days. We don't have to be so anxious. She believed that as long as the cultivators had some understanding of the ruins, they would not choose to go now. The wilderness could be attacked by monsters at any time. Mental tension was not a good state. If they stayed there for 3 days, when the ruins were really opened, they would not have the energy to fight for the treasures. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xia Jiqing and the others looked at each other and nodded. On this point, Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding was far more than theirs. Since Hongzhuang said so, it proved that Hongzhuang must be confident. I was wondering, there are still many cultivators in the city who haven't made a move yet. I thought it was strange before, so it was like this. Xia Jiqing smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. After 2 days, we will set off and wait for the restriction to disappear completely. As the head of the Bailey family in her previous life, she was quite familiar with the ruins. It would take about 3 days for the restriction to disappear from the ruins. Although there would be some differences in the time of each ruin, there would definitely be no problem for them to set off 2 days later. Only in this way could they maintain a relatively good state. The ruins are about to open. I'm really nervous. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't hide the excitement on her face. I've only heard about how powerful the ruins are before, but I didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to see it with my own eyes this time. There are many dangers in the ruins. If you are not careful, you may lose your life. Xiao Man, you can't be too excited. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but say. Ever since she saw the ancient ruins in the Falling Cloud mountain range, she knew that the ruins were not simple. Although this thing was very exciting to talk about, the dangers involved were really shocking. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Yuan Xiaoman's eyes flashed with surprise. She looked at Xia Jiqing in confusion. Jiqing, you're so knowledgeable. Have you seen enough ruins? Chapter 1364. Seeing that Xia Jiqing had actually seen the ancient ruins with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Yuan Xiaoman's mouth couldn't help but turn into an O shape. This was too unbelievable. Ancient ruins, that was something that many cultivators couldn't see in their lifetime, but Xia Jiqing and the others could team up to see it together. This was really not an ordinary fate. Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin looked at each other. In any case, they were now part of the team. Jiqing, tell me about the last time you entered the ancient ruins. What was it like? Yuan Xiaoman came to Xia Jiqing's side. She was really curious about the ancient ruins. If she could get some experience from Xia Jiqing, she could pay more attention when entering the ancient ruins in the future. Seeing that Yuan Xiaoman was extremely interested in this, Xia Jiqing also opened her mouth and excitedly told Yuan Xiaoman about what she had seen in the ancient ruins before. Gong Shaoqing and the others looked at the excited Xia Jiqing and Yuan Xiaoman, and there was a faint smile in their eyes. Speaking of which, Xia Jiqing and Yuan Xiaoman's characters were very similar, and the two were particularly congenial. The tension that had emerged because the ancient ruins was about to open was reduced a bit by Xia Jiqing and Yuan Xiaoman's chatter. 2 days later, Xia Jiqing and the others found that there were fewer and fewer cultivators in Wuguang City. Everyone had rushed to the place where the ancient ruins were located. However, there were also some cultivators who had not yet set off. Let's go too. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the people who were ready and said. Okay. Everyone nodded. They believed that the ancient ruins would open tomorrow, and they should indeed set off. With the departure of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, many cultivators in Wuguang City also set off. The cultivators who set off at this time were often cultivators who had some understanding of the ancient ruins. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to wait until now. Along the way, there were other teams around Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, but no one had the slightest communication. They just quickly went to the place where the ancient ruins were located. In this situation, everyone didn't even have the idea of provoking opponents. They just wanted to mind their own business. After all, the ancient ruins were the most important treasures. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the area where the ancient monument was located, they saw a sea of people. At a glance, the ground was full of cultivators, and everyone was looking at the ancient monument. Seeing such a spectacular scene, Xia Jiqing and the others couldn't help but exclaim, "Aren't there too many people? What a surprise!" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the crowd and sighed. There are already many cultivators participating in the assessment. Now, almost half of them have gathered together. Gong Shaoqing frowned. Hongzhuang, there are so many cultivators here. Could Han Xiling and the rest be here too? As Gong Shaoqing's voice fell, the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others changed. For them, Han Xiling was always a hidden danger. It was best to solve it as soon as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly, and her pretty face was filled with thoughts. Han Xiling is also likely to appear here. Chapter 1365. After knowing this, everyone was more careful when they paid attention to their surroundings. A cold and despicable guy like Han Xiling might make some sneak attacks at any time, so they had to be on guard. Let's find a place to sit down first. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Everyone nodded. The front of the monument was already full of cultivators. They could only find a place to sit down casually, which was not close to the gate of the monument. Usually, this area was a place where demonic beasts wreaked havoc. However, as more and more cultivators gathered, the demonic beasts began to disperse. Not far away, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could still see the bodies of monsters. Clearly, in the past 2 days, the cultivators here had been extremely busy. After dealing with a lot of demonic beasts, the demonic beasts were afraid of them and did not appear again. Xia Jiqing and the others could find that among the cultivators at the front, many people's mental state was not very good. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but admire Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was right. It was useless to come here too early. On the contrary, it would affect their own state. Now that they were here, the monsters would no longer appear, which undoubtedly saved them a lot of trouble. Not far away, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Since knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was here, he couldn't help but pay attention. The waste that was suppressed by him in the beginning had now become like this. He had seen the lonely appearance of the crown prince with his own eyes. This kind of counterattack was really unacceptable to him. Hongzhuang. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and prepared to cultivate, a familiar voice sounded in front of her. Hearing this call, not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but Gong Shaoqing and the others also looked in the direction of the voice. With this look, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were surprised to find that the other party turned out to be Mo Yunjue, who they hadn't seen for a long time. Mo Yunjue was still wearing a black robe with silver bamboo embroidered on it. With the movements of Mo Yunjue, it bloomed a little silver light. After not seeing each other for a while, Mo Yunjue was as handsome as before, and a noble aura lingered. Mo Yunjue's nobility was not the same as Di Beichen's domineering nobility. His nobility was full of a reserved depth. At first glance, you wouldn't feel his nobility and domineering, but the closer you got, the more frightened you were. Because he was like a black hole, you couldn't see the bottom. Many of the cultivators present looked at Mo Yunjue, and most of them were women. Although Mo Yunjue had been sitting there without saying a word, his handsome appearance and extraordinary aura had already attracted many people's attention. Following Mo Yunjue's gaze, everyone saw an otherworldly and alluring figure. If a group of female cultivators had some jealousy in their hearts, at this moment, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, those dissatisfied words could not be spoken. Because this woman was also very outstanding. Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Haoshuan were sitting next to Mo Yunjue. Previously, they were afraid of Mo Yunjue's team. Not for other reasons, but because Mo Yunjue was a cultivator from a large empire. Chapter 1366. However, Xianyuan Huan and the others did not expect that a cultivator from a large dynasty would know Bailey Hongzhuang. Mo Yunjue's figure swept and slowly walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, long time no see. Mo Yunjue's lips curled into a faint smile. His pair of eyes, which were as deep as a black hole, were shining like stars. He was very happy. I didn't expect you to participate in the assessment. Her light and pleasant voice could not hide her surprise. Since the last time they parted in the Qing dynasty, Bailey Hongzhuang had no news of Mo Yunjue. She originally thought that she would not have a chance to see him in the future. She did not expect to see him in this assessment, it was really a coincidence. Mo Yunjue chuckled, I know that you are participating in the assessment, so I specially participated. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened a little. She only thought that Mo Yunjue was joking and did not take it to heart. She had always been curious about the identity of Mo Yunjue. The last time she saw him in the Qing dynasty, she felt that Mo Yunjue should not be just a restaurant owner in the Qing dynasty. Moreover, this time Mo Yunjue did not represent the Qing dynasty in the assessment, but participated in the assessment as a cultivator from another dynasty. This point alone was enough to prove that Mo Yunjue was not just a person from the Qing dynasty. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not notice the seriousness in Mo Yunjue's eyes. Young Master Mo, I didn't expect to meet you here. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with a deep smile. The last time Mo Yunjue helped them in the Qing dynasty, they remembered clearly, so they had always been grateful. His handsome face was full of smiles. Mo Yunjue's eyes swept over Gong Shaoqing and the others and smiled. You are actually in the same team, this is really great. It seemed that Di Beichen really cared about Bailey Hongzhuang. Almost at the moment when he saw Gong Shaoqing and the others, Mo Yunjue had already understood all of this. If it were not for Di Beichen's arrangement, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would not have appeared in this assessment in the form of a small team. Gong Shaoqing and the others smiled. Along the way, almost all the acquaintances they met in the assessment were enemies. It was really a good feeling to meet a friend. Back then, Mo Yunjue's help to them was deeply engraved in their hearts. Therefore, everyone liked Mo Yunjue very much. Young master, which dynasty are you representing to participate in the assessment competition? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile, her ink-black phoenix eyes filled with curiosity. Qianfeng dynasty. Mo Yunjue said with a smile. Hearing the name of the Qianfeng dynasty, Xia Jiqing and the others exclaimed. This Qianfeng dynasty was a large dynasty. Moreover, the Qianfeng dynasty was not an ordinary large dynasty, but the real powerhouse of a large dynasty. Mo Yunjue being able to represent the Qianfeng dynasty in the assessment competition had already proved that his identity was not simple. The larger the dynasty, the more fierce the competition. Not only that, this also proved that Mo Yunjue's strength was very strong. Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fangyu looked at each other. Before, they felt that Mo Yunjue's identity was not simple. Otherwise, Mo Yunjue would not dare to offend the royal family of the Qing dynasty. It turned out that Mo Yunjue was not from the Qing dynasty. Young Master Mo, I didn't expect you to be from the Qianfeng dynasty, you are really amazing. Chapter 1367. Are you here on behalf of Tiangang sect? Mo Yunjue frowned slightly, and his handsome eyes were filled with some doubts, but there was a hint of understanding in the depths of his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, but we now call ourselves the Tiangang dynasty. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue's eyes changed a bit, but he did not care much about this title. Because of Han Xiling? Mo Yunjue teased. With Mo Yunjue's voice falling, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and others changed slightly, and they looked at Mo Yunjue with slight surprise. They did not expect Mo Yunjue to know about Han Xiling. Feeling the eyes of everyone, Mo Yunjue explained very indifferently, Tiangang sect's young Lord Di Beichen and Han Xiling have always been called a match made in heaven. You are now in such a situation, you can understand it if you look carefully. Xia Jiqing and others suddenly understood. So that's how it is. They only knew that the cultivators of Tiangang sect had always regarded Di Beichen and Han Xiling as a pair, but they did not expect so many people to know about this. Mo Yunjue, as a cultivator of a large dynasty, naturally knew a lot more than them. It seems that Han Xiling did not make it difficult for you. Mo Yunjue looked at the expressions of everyone, and his heart had already understood. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman on the side were completely dumbfounded when they learned that Bailey Hongzhuang and others were here on behalf of Tiangang sect. They also felt that the name Tiangang dynasty seemed to have something to do with Tiangang sect, but a team of 5 people, they did not think much about it. They just thought that it was an ordinary small dynasty. Now listening to the conversation of Mo Yunjue and others, the two of them understood. Yuan Xiaoman's eyes were full of amazement. She said that with the strength of the boss, how could he come from a small dynasty? However, Tiangang sect, what a powerful sect. Tiangang sect's young lord. Yuan Jixin muttered to himself, constantly repeating the name of Di Beichen. When Di Beichen went to the Yuan family earlier, he felt that the name Di Beichen was very familiar, but he did not think much about it. Now he knew that Di Beichen was the young lord of Tiangang sect. No wonder Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were so unscrupulous when they were in Yuan Martial City. With such a noble identity, they naturally did not need to be scrupulous. Yuan Hongyang and the others were acquainted with two great characters. At this moment, Tiangang sect, but at this moment, when she heard Yuan Jixin's of sects, at with sect. Sect, S sect, young sect, S sect, oh my god. Yuan Shao Man was completely dumbfounded. What kind of noble status was that? She actually recognized Tiangang sect's young sect mistress as her boss. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not notice the change in Yuan Xiaoman's expression and continued to chat with Mo Yunjue. I heard that Han Xiling is also participating in this year's competition. Could it be that Mo Yunjue's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang? Although everyone had been talking about how powerful Han Xiling was, he didn't think that Han Xiling was that powerful. It was just a rumor. With Bailey Hongzhuang's speed of improvement, if she were to encounter Han Xiling, it would be hard to say who would win. Chapter 1368. Although Mo Yunjue only said half of his words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all understood what he meant. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. We were separated by a strange combination of factors, so we didn't solve it. With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, even Xia Jiqing and the others couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. These words were too domineering. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. These were her heartfelt words. For such a disgusting Han Xiling, she only hoped to get rid of her as soon as possible. She didn't want to wait until the end of the assessment to see Han Xiling. That woman, after leaving Tiangang sect this time, she didn't need to go back. Mo Yunjue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with appreciation. He had to say that Bailey Hongzhuang's courage was really not something an ordinary person could have. If I see Han Xiling, I will inform you. How about it? Mo Yunjue said with a smile. You know Han Xiling? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. Although many cultivators may have heard of Han Xiling, not many people would know what Han Xiling looked like. Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. Just like Di Beichen is the dream lover of many female cultivators, Han Xiling is also the dream lover of many male cultivators. Although I have no interest in her, I have seen her portrait. The next moment, Mo Yunjue took a step closer to Bailey Hongzhuang. The corners of his mouth outlined a charming arc, and he said in her ear, "She is not as beautiful as you." After that, Mo Yunjue had already stood up straight, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Thank you for the compliment. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips evoked a smile, and she accepted Mo Yunjue's praise very calmly. She had always been very confident in her appearance. Even in the face of Han Xiling, she was not worried at all. The restriction of this monument will probably disappear tomorrow morning. When you enter the monument, you have to be more careful. Mo Yunjue said slowly, I will go back to the team first. Okay. After Mo Yunjue left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat down. I didn't expect to meet young Master Mo here, what a coincidence. Xia Jiqing said with a smile. Bai Junyu nodded, maybe young Master Mo will enter the same sect with us in the future. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. They had thought that they had only met once, but it seemed like there would be many more interactions in the future. Bailey Haoshuan looked at the conversation between Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue, and his eyes were filled with a thick color of surprise. Your Highness, is this man also an admirer of Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Haoshuan frowned. Men were the most accurate in judging other men. Just from the attitude and eyes of the man in black, he could judge that the man in black had special feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang. Isn't Bailey Hongzhuang already married to Di Beichen? He still comes out to flirt. Bailey Haoshuan was somewhat contemptuous. No matter how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was now, in his eyes, she was still the annoying Bailey Hongzhuang. If it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang, there wouldn't be so many things happening in the general's mansion. Listening to Bailey Haoxuan's accusation, Xian Yuanhuan's eyebrows flashed with impatience. Bailey Haoxuan, Hongzhuang is not such a person, don't talk nonsense. If Bailey Hongzhuang was really a fickle woman, there were many cultivators who pursued her in the academy, but she didn't respond at all. Chapter 1369. Bailey Haoxuan looked at Xian Yuanhuan in surprise. He wanted to let the crown prince vent his anger. He didn't expect the crown prince to be so protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. He really couldn't understand. He didn't think Bailey Hongzhuang was good at all. Xian Yuanhuan's heart became more and more emotional. This black-clothed man was obviously an excellent cultivator. Even though Bewitching's status was so high, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's amazing growth speed, he also felt that the future Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not be weak. After seeing Xian Yuanhuan's gradually dignified face, Bailey Haoxuan couldn't help but shut his mouth. If he angered the crown prince because of this, he would really be asking for trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others talked for a while. When they were about to rest, Mo Yunjue's figure appeared in everyone's sight again. Seeing Mo Yunjue suddenly return, everyone was a little surprised. Mo Yunjue smiled faintly and sat down beside Bailey Hongzhuang. He said, "The medium-sized empire's team has a total of 8 people. I see that your team only has 7 people. Including me, you make 8 people. How about it?" Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. For a moment, they didn't understand what Mo Yunjue meant. "Young Master Mo, you mean you want to join our team?" Bai Junyu couldn't help but ask. Mo Yunjue nodded slightly. "Yes, that's what I mean. Can you agree to let me join?" Everyone looked at Mo Yunjue and for a moment, they didn't know how to answer. Logically speaking, with such a powerful cultivator joining their team, they would naturally welcome him. However, Mo Yunjue didn't stay in a large empire's team. Instead, he came to join their team. This was too strange, wasn't it? For a moment, everyone couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Come to think of it, there was only one reason why Mo Yunjue wanted to join them, and that was Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Mo Yunjue and asked, "Why did you join our team?" "I'm your friend, so it's easier for me to get along with you," Mo Yunjue said with a natural expression. Qian Feng Dynasty is a large dynasty team. It will be more convenient for you to stay in your own team. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly said. Speaking of which, Mo Yunjue had always been an enigma to her. However, one thing she was certain of was that Mo Yunjue had no ill intentions towards them. "I like challenges and adventures," Mo Yunjue replied. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Mo Yunjue speechlessly and then said, "The real reason." Seeing this, Mo Yunjue sighed helplessly. "Well, I don't get along well with those guys. They are all arrogant people. No one is willing to submit to anyone. It's too troublesome." Hearing this, Xia Jiqing and the others understood. Qian Feng Dynasty's national strength was so strong, the cultivators it selected were naturally very strong. These geniuses had always been aloof and gathered in a team. Obviously, no one would be willing to submit to them. Not to mention Qian Feng Dynasty, even some small dynasty teams would have such a situation. The internal problems of Qian Feng Dynasty should be more obvious. Chapter 1370. Speaking of which, among the teams participating in the assessment, there were very few teams that could be as united as the Tiangang dynasty. This was the most profound feeling that Yuan Zhixin and Yuan Xiaoman had after joining Bailey Hongzhuang's team. Thinking back to when they were in the Snow Origin Dynasty team, Zhu Weiqing's opinions were always contrary to theirs, and every time there was inevitably a conflict. It was just that he and Xiaomen didn't want things to get out of hand, so they often chose to endure. Boss, if young Master Mo is not happy in the Qianfeng dynasty team, then let him join us. Xia Jiqing slowly said, moreover, with young Master Mo as a master, the strength of our team can be enhanced. Although she hadn't seen Mo Yunjue fight, she could judge that Mo Yunjue was definitely not weak. Miss Xia is right, we are friends, and forming a team together is also an excellent choice, right? Mo Yunjue smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang. Since knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to participate in the assessment, he immediately chose to participate in the assessment. The assessment had already begun for a few months, and he had been looking for Bailey Hongzhuang, but he didn't get any news. Now that he finally found Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't just leave like this. Bailey Hongzhuang looked deeply at Mo Yunjue. She always felt that the reason was not so simple. Is it really like this? Mo Yunjue nodded seriously. Of course it is true, it is rare to meet in this assessment, isn't it a kind of fate? Master, this Mo Yunjue joining the team is also good. The deeper we go into the center of the small world, the stronger the cultivators we will encounter in the future. This Mo Yunjue is very strong, with him joining the team, the strength of the team will be improved a lot. Xiao He smiled. Xiao Bai glanced at Mo Yunjue and said to Bailey Hongzhuang, Master, I think this guy has taken a liking to you. As Xiao Bai finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be stunned for a moment. A helpless expression appeared on her face. He knows that I've already married Beichen. She had never hidden the news of her marriage with Di Beichen from anyone. From the moment she accepted Di Beichen, she never had any other thoughts. Hearing this, Xiao Bai nodded. That's true. Then what are you worried about? In any case, Mo Yunjue won't harm us. Xiao He was very calm. If Mo Yunjue wanted to harm them, he could have done it back then. There was no need for him to wait until now. If young Master Mo is willing, then join our team. Gong Shaoqing slowly said. Back then, Mo Yunjue had done them a great favor. If they could repay Mo Yunjue now, that would be something they were willing to do. Mo Yunjue's handsome face broke into a joyful smile. Thank you very much. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Mo Yunjue helplessly. In fact, she really could not find a reason to reject. If Mo Yunjue really needed help, as long as she could do it, she would not reject. In the future, our team will officially be promoted to a middle-tier empire team. Bai Junyu smiled. With this number of people, in addition to Xiao He, Xiao Bai and Bai Shi, their numbers would be close to that of a large empire team. Chapter 1371. Qianfeng Dynasty. Young Lord just joined Bailey Hongzhuang's team. Will he be in danger? A cultivator's face was filled with worry. Bailey Hongzhuang's team, including the young master, only had 8 people. There were many powerful cultivators in this assessment competition. Even if young Lord was powerful, he might not be able to fend off others. Moreover, young Lord still had to protect Bailey Hongzhuang. Young Lord told us to stay here obediently. Let's stay here obediently. In my opinion, we should carefully follow behind young Lord and try not to be discovered. If young Lord is in danger, we can also help. How can it be so simple? Young Lord has already told us not to disturb him. If young Lord's sweetheart finds out, young Lord will definitely blame us. For a moment, the cultivators from Qianfeng dynasty had a bitter expression. In fact, they didn't need to participate in this assessment competition at all. It was just that young Lord suddenly said that he wanted to participate in the assessment competition, so they came. Speaking of which, young Lord just wanted to see his sweetheart. After so many years, it's rare to see young Lord like someone. We must support him. As soon as one of the cultivators finished speaking, the others nodded in agreement. They participated in the assessment competition this time to give young Lord and his sweetheart more opportunities to be together. After a few months, the young master had finally found his sweetheart. They couldn't affect the young master. Xianyuan Huan and the others also heard the conversation of the cultivators from Qianfeng dynasty. Their expressions changed again and again. Bailey Haoshuan was speechless. How did the cultivators from Qianfeng dynasty come to participate in the assessment competition? They were obviously here to pursue Bailey Hongzhuang. Moreover, the man just now was actually their young lord. To be able to be called young lord in a powerful dynasty like Qianfeng dynasty, it was enough to show how extraordinary that man was. In comparison, they were simply dregs. Xianyuan Huan's expression changed a little. Everything was as he had guessed before. That man also had feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang. Back then, she was merely the daughter of a small dynasty's general. Now, even an extraordinary figure from a large dynasty had to spare no effort to woo her. The distance between them was indeed an insurmountable chasm. Thinking of this, the smile on Xianyuan Huan's face became even more bitter. Even though he knew that there was no hope, his heart still ached every time he thought about it. Time gradually passed, and the night quietly passed. For the entire night, not a single demonic beast appeared. Everyone was waiting for the restriction to end with rapt attention. In comparison, the cultivators from the large empires were the calmest. The cultivators from the medium empires were extremely excited. On the other hand, the cultivators from the small empires were constantly looking around, hoping to be the first to notice the opening of the ruins. As the sky gradually brightened up, many cultivators had already exited their cultivation state and focused their mental powers on the ruins in front of them. The enormous ruins were several times larger than the ruins that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had seen last time. The golden ruins exuded a noble and majestic aura. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.